All the Kremlin's men, inside the court of Vladimir Putin. Prepare to delve into the enigmatic world shaped by Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin's men in the book's summary of All the Kremlin's Men, Inside the Court of Vladimir Putin. Unravel the intricate network of Putin's inner circle and understand how Russia's actions on the international stage are dictated by a collective, tactical mindset rather than a single strategic vision. Discover how Putin's relationships with Western leaders evolved over time, his ever-changing domestic policies, and what motivated his unwavering support for Bashar al-Assad. This engaging summary will keep you informed about the complexities of Putin's Russia and what lies beneath the facade of a country controlled solely by one man.
Putin's shadowy brain trust. Vladimir Putin's rule over Russia is not a one-man show, as his shadowy brain trust continuously works to determine how he can maintain his popularity and keep his grasp on power. Despite their self-delusion of logical and strategic decision-making, Putin and his advisors' moves are strictly tactical, short-term responses to outside stimuli. They believe that Putin's widespread popularity could vanish at any time, resulting in them never fully trusting polling data and approval ratings. From this perspective, Putin's actions are a necessary and inevitable response to the threats posed by ruthless foes in Washington and NATO's encroaching power. Putin's complicated relationship with the West. When Vladimir Putin became president of Russia in 2000, he immediately began courting Western leaders. However, his alliances with Tony Blair, George W. Bush, and other Western leaders quickly fell by the wayside as he became increasingly disenchanted with American interference in world affairs, NATO's expansion, and Western treachery. Putin's early reforms were widely accepted by Russians, but his mishandling of a crisis involving a sunken nuclear submarine and his hostile views on independent media ultimately led to his long war against the press. Despite being beloved by some leaders, such as Silvio Berlusconi, Putin's relationships with Western leaders have always been complicated. Putin's rise to power. Putin's reign in Russia was characterized by consumerism and financial competition among the oligarchs. However, as time progressed, Putin and his team became more interested in their own wealth accumulation. Despite the potential for democracy in 2012, Putin's opposition revealed their dissatisfaction with his rule in large rallies. In response, Putin held his own gatherings of government employees to display loyalty. The promotion of a worker to presidential envoy in the Urals Federal District showed Putin's keen eye for loyalty. Putin realized that the middle classes and the intelligentsia were unappreciative of the prosperity he had provided them and considered the groups untrustworthy. During the 2012 campaign, Putin won 64% of the votes, and his foes were easily defeated. Putin's opponents were arrested and prosecuted regularly by the end of 2012. Putin's reign was kick-started by the Kursk tragedy, which began his rivalry with the manipulators of public opinions, i.e., the non-state-controlled media. Putin's De-Medvedization. After appointing Dmitry Medvedev as prime minister, Putin began a campaign to humiliate him. The Duma reversed Medvedev's liberal policies, and Moscow's propaganda machine turned against him. Putin purged the regime of Medvedev's loyalists and enacted laws counter to his public stances on issues such as gay rights. Medvedev's missteps in Georgia were detailed in a documentary titled The Lost Day, which attributed the death of 1,000 people to his cowardice. Putin's move was seen as an assertion of power, no warning to those who cross him. Putin's absence and the power of loyalty. Putin's rule is based on the principle of his word being law, which poses a problem when he becomes unavailable. Such an instance happened in 2012 when Putin was secretly recovering from an injury and his advisors were faced with a dilemma. They eventually made a move to bar Americans from adopting Russian children, which Putin later signed off on. This decision was a warning to officials not to influence Putin's decisions. Loyalty also played a key role in Putin's relationship with Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, who pleased Putin with his abject loyalty, leading to more funds for Chechnya. Putin aided Kadyrov in eliminating political rivals and critics. The 2014 assembling of Chechen forces as Putin's foot soldiers drew attention, but Kadyrov's implication in the murder of an opposition leader led to a breakdown in Putin's relationship with him. How Putin Got the Olympics. Vladimir Putin's 2014 Winter Olympics in Sochi became closely tied to his personal brand, but few know that it was initially proposed by oligarch Vladimir Putin. In 2005, Putin suggested the idea to Putin, who initially showed little interest. Putin then launched a targeted advertising campaign with the slogan, "The Games We Deserve," buying airtime on radio stations Putin was known to enjoy, and placing billboards along the routes of Putin's motorcade. The campaign worked, and Putin backed the proposal, despite Sochi's subtropical location being an unlikely choice for a winter sporting event. Putin became heavily involved, even flying to Guatemala to charm every IOC member in one-on-one meetings, and pledging to host their families in Russia as his guests. Construction, however, proved wasteful. The final cost totaled over $7 billion, due in part to last-minute additions like a roof added to Fisht Stadium, built when it was almost completed, because of stiff sea breezes. The book suggests today's image of Putin as a formidable Russian Tsar was constructed without some of his say. Putin's support of Assad. Putin supported Assad, but faced humiliation at the G20 summit in Australia. He saw Assad's attacks on his own people as a rational response to the Arab Spring, which he viewed as a potential rebellion in Russia. Putin's close circle of friends and colleagues became even tighter throughout his tenures, shielding him from reality. Putin withdrew from appearances abroad, and Russian state officials grew aloof. At the Munich Security Conference, attendees responded to Lavrov's claims with unbridled laughter, and Russians were stunned. Putin's political longevity. Putin's advisors maneuvered to keep him in power despite his initial wish to retire. Today, his retirement seems unfathomable, leaving his advisors vulnerable to political and financial repercussions. During his tenure, Putin's stance on Russia and his political approach changed, shaping the country's current state, and are a product of his team's strategic maneuvers to align his wishes with their own agendas.
Through the summary of all the Kremlin's men, we gain a deeper understanding of the workings of Vladimir Putin's Russia and how power is exercised and maintained. We learn that Putin's actions and decisions are primarily driven by the collective efforts of his inner circle, wanting to retain their influence and power. Additionally, we witness the fluctuation of Putin's alliances and his responses to both domestic and international situations. Clearly, Putin's views and relationships towards Western leaders have not remained constant, and his grip on power has largely been influenced by the actions of other political players. Thus, the portrayal of Putin as the sole power holder of Russia is an oversimplification of the intricate dynamics at play within the Kremlin.